Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from our Telesur studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin checking our headlines. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro informed of 13 new COVID-19 cases in Nueva Esparta, all related to a local transmission event becoming the epicenter of the virus in Venezuela. China announced that it will contribute with an additional $30 million to the World Health Organization. Beijing had already donated $20 million to the WHO. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that economic activity measures against COVID-19 will start to be eased gradually in the country. We begin with our news. You stay with us. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro informed of 13 new COVID-19 cases as he urged authorities and citizens to comply with preventive measures.
Hoy tenemos 13 nuevos casos.
Today we have 13 new cases in Nueva Esparta, which is now the state with the highest number of infections. The outbreak epicenter was the baseball academy. Due to a single case, 50-60 people can get infected. Thus, the spread begins, and it can unravel if we don't act with discipline and with the goal to end the chain of infection in all Venezuela.
Russia has reiterated its support to the Venezuelan government and rejected U.S. interference in the nation. The Foreign Affairs Ministry took to Twitter to say only Venezuelans, not the U.S., can and must decide their future in a direct dialogue between themselves without any outside interference, preconditions, or ultimatums. Never in global history has a demand led to the emergence of trust. This was said by the spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova. Moving on, a medical brigade from Cuba arrived in Cape Verde to help contain the spread of the novel coronavirus in the African island. The delegation is made up of 5 doctors, 10 nursing professionals, and 5 specialists in hygiene and epidemiology. They will join other 79 Cuban specialists in the African island that has reported 68 COVID-19 cases. The brigade represents yet another show of solidarity with the people of the world by Cuba. This is the 22nd brigade that Cuba has sent to the world to help fight with the COVID-19. And this Thursday, Cuban health authorities confirmed 46 new cases of COVID-19 in the island.
We have 3,369 people hospitalized, with 2,502 suspected cases and 125 confirmed cases. Yesterday, over 2,000 tests were carried out across the island, and 46 came back positive. Cuba has so far done 34,343 tests, of which 1,235 proved positive.
Cuba's Director of Epidemiology, Francisco Duran, also reported the number of recovered and deceased patients in the island.
Of the 1,235 patients diagnosed with COVID-19, 811 are in stable condition, 43 have died, and 365 have been sent home.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador announced the delivery of credits to small companies aiming to strengthen the economic sector in the country. The investment will benefit small companies that, despite of COVID-19 emergency, has not laid off workers. The initiative is an effort to maintain productive development in the country and guarantee basic services. The national executive is focusing also in other areas like economic and commercial.
We are about to see which sectors will mainly receive this support. According to our data so far, 61% is commerce, 17% the productive field, and 21% the service industry.
President López Obrador spoke about the mechanisms that the government implements to benefit small companies amid the health crisis.
A credit without application required, no paperwork or bureaucracy. As the people acknowledge the process, this will help us because we want to begin to deliver the first credits next Monday.
The number of COVID-19 cases in Ecuador rose to 22,160, almost double the amount previously announced after Health Minister Juan Carlos Ceballos released the results of the tests that were sequestered. On Thursday morning, Government Minister Maria Paula Romo, as usual, released the official figures and reported that 11,183 positive cases had been counted in the South American countries so far, and 12,200 cases had been ruled out. Between confirmed and probable cases, the death toll in Ecuador rose to 1,588. And COVID-19 cases continue to increase in neighboring Colombia. According to the Ministry of Health, the total number of cases has risen to over 4,500 with a death toll of 215. Meanwhile, there have been 927 recovered patients. Experts agree that failures of the sanitary system has affected the efforts to flatten the curve of infection. The situation is also getting worse in overcrowded prisons in Del Meta department, as according to Governor Juan Guillermo Zuluaga, only in Villavicencio prison there are 70 positive COVID-19 cases. In El Salvador, the Attorney General's office summoned on Thursday Vice Minister of Health Francisco Alavi to declare about the restrictions imposed with the support of the ministry and police in the town of Port Liberty last weekend. President Nayib Bukele ordered these restrictions to be supervised by police officers and armed forces to contain the spread of COVID-19, but the decision led to confrontations between the state powers. The Attorney General of El Salvador, Raúl Melara, assured that neither the president nor the mayors can impose movement restrictions because they consider them unconstitutional. At least 16 humanitarian organizations in the country asked the Secretary General of United Nations to activate mechanisms to preserve democracy after a series of measures they consider authoritarian.
The issue of this restriction is under investigation. We are totally clear that the townships cannot establish a curfew under any circumstance. This is something illegal. You could have the ability throughout the Legislative Assembly throughout an exception. So this definitely cannot happen.
COVID-19 cases are on the rise in the Dominican Republic while Haiti reduces restrictions in its borders. Our correspondent in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, Daisy Toussaint, has the details for us. Welcome, Daisy.
En República Dominicana, después de 54 días de hospitalización,
in the Dominican Republic, after 54 days of hospitalization, the Italian who was the first positive case of coronavirus in the country has been discharged. Claudio Pasqualini left the Ramon de Lara hospital on Wednesday after testing negative for COVID-19. The Minister of Public Health has reported today that there are 239 cases of COVID-19 in La Victoria prison, and as far as the statistic on confirmed cases throughout the country, 5,543 have been confirmed. 265 people have died and 674 have recovered. Meanwhile, neighboring Haiti announced the easing of the country's entry requirement for Haitians stuck abroad during the pandemic. The Haitian foreign minister pointed out that the government intends to help its citizens in the Dominican Republic, where the measures left hundreds of Haitians unemployed. According to a report published on Thursday by the International Organization for Migration, since March 19, 10,500 Haitians have returned to their country from the Dominican Republic in the midst of this pandemic. According to the most recent data from the Ministry of Public Health and Population, Haiti has so far recorded 62 cases of infection, 4 deaths, and a further 662 cases are still under investigation.
Thank you, Daisy. That was Daisy Toussaint from Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. Like this, we go for a first break. Remember, follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and on my account at Laura Peterson. We'll be right back with more news. We are back with our news. Meanwhile, China announced on Thursday that it will contribute with an additional $30 million to the World Health Organization. Beijing, which had already donated $20 million to the organization, stressed the money will serve for the prevention and control of the COVID-19 pandemic and to support improvement of health systems in developing countries. Last week, the U.S. cut off its monetary contribution to the organization.
Supporting the WHO at this critical time in the global fight against the epidemic is defending the ideals and principles of multilateralism and upholding the status and authority of the United Nations. The virus is the common enemy of mankind, and the international community can only win the war if it works together. China's contribution to the WHO reflects the support and trust of the Chinese government and peoples for the WHO, as well as its contribution to the cause of world public health and the global fight against the epidemic.
The 27 leaders of the European Union met this Thursday via video conference to discuss a rescue package to halt the COVID-19 curve of infections, as the bloc has confirmed over 110,000 deaths. All members agreed on the single instrument for a rescue package to attend the needs and the recovery of the economic situation. According to the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, the arrangements are to complement next month when they fulfill the process of what she said was balance between grants and loans. In the United States, an additional 4.4 million citizens filed for unemployment last week, adding to a total of over 26 million since the coronavirus pandemic shutdown hit the U.S. economy. States across the country are facing problems with the number of people applying for unemployment benefits, while economists expect the figure to steadily decline going forward. This Thursday, the United States reports more than 852,000 confirmed cases and the number of deaths to more than 84,000. In Russia, medical facilities are being adjusted to help authorities cope with the coronavirus. A trauma center in Kazan City in the Tatarstan Republic has been converted into a temporary hospital for COVID-19 patients, currently housing around 50, but with a total capacity of 200 people. Medical staff has received additional training to be able to treat patients in intensive care units. They sleep in hospital dormitories rather than return home at the end of their shift in order to protect their families from infections. The overall number of cases in that country has currently surpassed the 62,000, with a death toll of 513 fatalities. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel warned of risking a setback in the fight against the coronavirus if restrictions are eased too early. Speaking to Parliament ahead of the European summit, Merkel told lawmakers on Thursday that Germany is committed to helping other European countries in their fight against the novel coronavirus.
Let us not squander what we have achieved and risk a setback. It will be a shame if a premature hope ultimately punishes all. Let us all stay on the path in the next phase of the pandemic, smart and careful. It's a long journey. We can run out of stamina and air too soon. One thing is clear. We should be prepared, in the spirit of solidarity, to make significantly higher contributions to the European budget for a period of time, because we want all member states in the European Union to be able to recover economically. Africa, and not only, depends very much on the work of the World Health Organization, who, on behalf of the German government, I would like to emphasize that the WHO is an indispensable partner and we support it in its mandate.
We've been hearing how the world is supporting WHO. We move on to Spain, that has suffered the third highest number of deaths in the world from the pandemic, after United States and Italy, with infections now more than 213,000 cases, health ministry figures showed. As of Thursday, the country's overall death toll has surpassed the 22,100.
Además tenemos, desgraciadamente,
Unfortunately, we still have 440 new deaths, and although these are still many more than we would like, we all know what this means. It is true that throughout the week we are remaining in the low 400s, from 400 to 440 as of today, whereas last week we were in the range of the 500s. We are seeing ICUs growing by 0.8%, about the same as we were seeing the previous days, and the number of hospitalizations is growing by 1.2%.
And the British government chief medical advisor has warned that social distancing measures in the United Kingdom may have to stay in place for the rest of the year. As of Thursday, the country has reported almost 134,000 COVID-19 cases and more than 18,100 fatalities.
In the long run, the exit from this is going to be one of two things, ideally. One of which is a highly effective vaccine, and there are a variety of ways vaccines can be deployed. They can be deployed for damping down epidemics, they can be deployed to protect vulnerable people, or highly effective drugs so that people stop dying of this disease, even if they catch it, or which can prevent this disease in vulnerable people. Until we have those, and the probability of having those any time in the next calendar year are incredibly small, and I think we should be realistic about that, we're going to have to rely on other social measures, which of course are very socially disruptive, as everyone is finding at the moment.
Scientists from the Oxford University began trialing on Thursday a COVID-19 vaccine on humans for the first time in the United Kingdom. Researchers at the University Hospital Southampton and the University of Southampton also joined the research. The study involved up to 510 healthy volunteers between 18 and 55 years old, with around 187 participants recruited in Southampton. According to the World Health Organization, more than 70 COVID-19 vaccines are being developed in the world. Time for another break. Hearing from the South, you stay tuned with us. We'll be right back. We are back with our news. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has spoken of a risk-adjusted strategy to reactivate economic activity in the country.
That beyond Thursday, the 30th of April, we should begin a gradual and phased recovery of economic activity. We will implement what we call a risk-adjusted strategy, through which we take a deliberate and cautious approach to the easing of current lockdown restrictions.
Members of the South African National Conference Force intensified operations amidst a nationwide lockdown on Tuesday. The South African government announced that they would increase soldiers' presence on the streets and around the country in order to provide aid as the virus continues to spread.
This is very effective because we can see that our people are starting to hear the call from the president and most of the people are wearing masks, most of them are sanitizing, and so most of the people are staying at home. It is there and there where you find that people are just loitering around and not knowing where they are. But we've got a way of addressing them and talking to them and advising them to stay at home.
So police are helping because they keep people away from the streets so that people can sit inside the houses, because this thing kills. It spreads every day. So if people stay inside their homes, then the virus will go down.
And with well over a third of the world's population under lockdown, education systems across the world have had to adapt to the extreme circumstances. In Ivory Coast, for example, the government has implemented a project called My School at Home, by which students can receive classes from home. The project primarily uses the WhatsApp mobile application and Facebook to provide students with continued education. Authorities said that for the time being, the program is only available to people in the 5th, 9th, and 12th grade, but will soon be expanded.
True that we are in Abidjan, but access to TV is not easy for everyone. Personally, we don't have a TV at home, but with the online courses, I can follow the lessons better, and even when you don't understand, you can ask questions to the teacher. You even talk like friends. It's very interesting. He answers you when you don't understand. He makes a voice message, or he even makes a video to send you, and then it is even more understandable. These are free courses organized by a group of private teachers in the community of Port Bouet and supported by the town councillor Mr. Bande Karamoko. These courses take place in the WhatsApp platforms in groups of 50 students.
United Nations Security Council will address on Thursday the situation of Palestine aggravated amid the COVID-19 pandemic and the Israeli persistent intentions of territorial annexations. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Authority spokesman Nabil Abu Roudeneh rejected the statement of the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who recently expressed that the decision to annex a large part of the occupied West Bank is a prerogative of the new Israeli coalition government. On his part, the Deputy Secretary General of the Arab League, Hassam Saki, warned that Israel could advance in its claim to annex the occupied Palestinian lands to its territory in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has hit the Gaza Strip and the West Bank with figures that has exceeded the 400 cases, with a death toll of only 4 fatalities. Muslims in Malaysia will welcome Ramadan amid strict movement restrictions in order to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus. The restrictions, called Movement Control Order, were initiated by the government in a bid to reduce COVID-19 infections in the country. Mosques around the capital city, Kuala Lumpur, remain closed, and Muslims were told to pray at home. These restrictions are felt by small businesses who rely on the Ramadan season to sell traditional food. Restrictions include movement controls, banning public gatherings, and urgent social distancing. Malaysia has reported 5,603 confirmed cases of COVID-19 with 95 fatalities.
Jangkaannya sepatutnya.
Usually we are expecting an increase in sales, but maybe because of the economic impact, we are expecting a 50% decrease compared to previous Ramadans. So yes, it's 50% decrease.
The leaders of the Iranian Revolution Guard warned on Thursday that its forces would target the U.S. Navy after President Trump's tweet a day earlier threatening to sink Iranian vessels on the Persian Gulf. The high-ranked official stressed that they have also instructed their military units to target any U.S. Navy ship or combat unit at sea in case of any threat to their vessel. Salami highlighted that the Islamic Republic considers security in the Persian Gulf as an essential part of its strategy to defend its national interests in the Gulf. Tensions between the two nations have increased since the United States decided to withdraw in May 2018 and unilaterally from the international nuclear agreement with Iran and reinstated economic sanctions against the Islamic Republic. and also intensifying sanctions in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. Like this, we come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find this and more on our website, telstraenglish.net, where you can read opinion articles, watch special interviews, and find so much more material that we produce especially for you. The invitation is made. You continue with us with Telesur, always together, connecting our global thousands. And next time, thank you for watching.